The movie begins in Osborne, in small town in Nebraska. Jackson arrives home and he receives a call from his friend, Mackin. They talk about the game they have later at school. While they are talking, Jackson sees a timer on in the kitchen. He tells Mackin that's weird because his family was going out to eat. So he calls his mom and sister Sadie, but no one answers. However, he doesn't think about it anymore and decides to take a nap since he still has 4 hours before the game. So he sets an alarm to wake up on time and falls asleep. The hours go by and Jackson doesn't wake up. He is awakened by the sound of the same timer that was in the kitchen and now it's on his nightstand. He stares at the timer very puzzled and notices that his cell phone is missing. He realizes that it is night and although he doesn't know what is happening, he decides to hurry up and he runs to get to the game on time. But upon reaching the entrance of his house, he sees that the door is open and that his truck is not there. Jackson thinks it's been robbed and calls 911. But at that moment, he sees a photo on a kitchen cabinet that worries him, so he destroys it. But he notices that there are more photos on the wall. While he is removing them, he goes up the stairs and finds many more photos on the floor of the hallway. He is now more disturbed. The photos lead into his parents' room, and he slowly opens the door, but he doesn't see anyone. Then he hears his cell phone ringing from the closet. So he takes a golf club and tells the intruder that whatever he thinks he knows about him, he really doesn't know anything. He opens the closet door and sees many more photos of a beating he gave another boy, who has his face covered and is covered in blood from the blows. Quite disturbed and not knowing where the intruder is, he yells at him that since he is in his house, he can legally kill him. And as he says this, a hand with a knife comes out of the clothes and cuts his heels. Jackson falls screaming in pain. The intruder comes out of hiding, and he is wearing a mask with Jackson's face. Jackson offers him money if that's what he wants. He also tells him that what he did was unintentional. It was just a game to get into the team, and it got out of hand. But the intruder doesn't pay attention to him. He just approaches him slowly and stabs Jackson in the heart. Jackson's cell phone rings again, and it's his father, who is worried that Jackson has not arrived at the game yet. As they continue to watch the game, a mass phone message reaches everyone in the audience and the cheerleaders, with a video of Jackson violently beating the boy until he bled. The boy is Caleb. He is a member of the team that is playing at the moment. Watching the video, everyone is shocked and pauses for a moment to look at Caleb, who doesn't know what's going on. At school, everyone is scared by the tragedy. Some suspect Caleb that he may have hired someone to kill Jackson. A place is reserved for everyone to express their sadness for Jackson. There is a group of 5 friends, McConaughey, Darby, Alex, Zach, and Rodrigo, who says that he is not going to cry for someone who beats him for fun every day. They see Caleb and feel sorry for him, as he is very concerned that everyone is blaming him. When they are in the school cafeteria, Alex says that she suspects Mackin. Zach says that it could have been his dad, Skipper Sanford. With the death of his son, Jackson's parents would move, so he could buy the house, since he works in real estate. Caleb walks over and isn't sure where to sit, since he doesn't know if he will be well received. But Darby invites him to sit with them, and they introduce themselves. At that moment, the student council president, Katie, gives a little speech about love and hate and about what happened to Jackson. But many students think that she is a hypocrite. She also thanks Darby for teaching her the meaning of courage when Darby at age 11 came out to school as gay. This upsets Darby a lot, but she doesn't say anything. Then they hold a minute's silence for Jackson, and McConaughey notices Oliver Larson is looking at her at a school. Zach realizes that his truck has graffiti, but Zach says they're right. His dad sucks and invites his friends over for a smoke. As they're leaving, Oliver crosses in front of them, and Alex says that Oliver could be the killer since he's a sociopath. That night at McConaughey's house, McConaughey is having dinner with her grandmother Gam. Gam tells her that she enrolled in an institute to sleep better since she has trouble sleeping. She also tells McConaughey that she should concentrate on her application for college, but McConaughey replies that they won't accept her because they will Google her real name, and they'll find out what happened. Gam tells her that she needs to stop blaming herself for what happened. Then McConaughey goes up to her room and receives a message from Oliver, but she ignores him and looks at her photos with him. Then she goes to sleep. That night, McConaughey has nightmares and is awakened by the sound of a bell. This bell is on the door of Gam's room to let McConaughey know when her grandmother gets up in the middle of the night, since she is a sleepwalker. McConaughey goes out to find Gam and finds the kitchen in a mess. McConaughey is puzzled since Gam has never done that, and she notices that the back door is open. McConaughey calls Gam, but she doesn't answer, and when she goes back inside she gets scared because Gam appears in front of her. Gam wakes up and is shocked by everything she did. The next day, Katie is at church making preparations with Marcus for Jackson's memorial. Katie tells Marcus that she is sure Caleb is behind the murder, but Marcus is out of sight. She receives a message from Marcus saying that he can't go to church because he's sick, and he asks her to take care of it by herself. Katie is puzzled that she had just seen Marcus, and she calls him, but Marcus tells her that he hasn't left his house. Then the projector turns on showing a podcast where she is giving a hateful and racist speech, which makes her quite restless. Then she sees someone with a mask of her face behind her. Katie is terrified and says that the podcast was a joke and was supposed to be anonymous. She tries to escape, but the door is closed. The killer cuts her in the stomach. At that moment, people arrive at the church, but they cannot enter because the door is closed. Katie crawls under the church chairs and then runs to hide in the confessional. The killer breaks the door with the knife, and when Katie thinks he's stopped, she is attacked from behind. Katie calls 911 without losing sight of the knife, but the killer manages to break down the door and pushes her face against the knife, and she dies. When the priest arrives to open the door, they find Katie hanging from the ceiling of the church. Due to the two murders, the sheriff decides to declare a curfew that night as a precaution. At McConaughey's house, she Googles her real name and remembering her past. She looks at her history when she was arrested. At that moment, she receives a call from Rodrigo. He is very sad and tells her that apparently they can no longer keep secrets because they become targets of the murderer. When McConaughey asks if he's feeling alright, he replies that he just has a cold and he has to take his medicine. The next day, all the students are in the interrogation. Rodrigo and Alex are suspicious of Mackin and Oliver. The deputy calls Zach and tells him that he can go because his dad's lawyer had invoked his constitutional rights. Zach comes out and his father Skipper is waiting for him outside, very angry. He tells Zach that he is a public figure and that he is making him look bad, that he stinks of marijuana. Leave those friends and get that graffiti buffed out of the truck because that is embarrassing. At the end of the interrogation, only McConaughey and Oliver remain. Oliver is waiting for his brother, the deputy, to get off work. Oliver talks to himself to get McConaughey's attention, and McConaughey tells him, "Are you serious?" Oliver approaches McConaughey, and he asks her why she didn't want to continue seeing him after the summer if she was embarrassed to be seen with him. But McConaughey dodges his question. At that moment, the deputy comes out and asks Oliver if he's seen his taser, and Oliver says no. Then the deputy calls McConaughey for questioning. The officer asks if she had any relationship with Jackson or Katie, or if they had argued. McConaughey says no. The officer tells her that she seems tense, and after looking at her suspiciously, he tells her she can go. When McConaughey comes out, she tells Oliver to go somewhere. Oliver replies that there is a curfew, but they still go. McConaughey tells Oliver to do the same as always, so they look for a place to park. Hidden, they start kissing, and then they are together. Then some students run past, and McConaughey receives a message from Zach, who is throwing a secret party at his house since his father is away. So they go to the party. When they are at the party, McConaughey realizes that everyone is revealing his secrets, and Zach tells them that they are geniuses, since by admitting their secrets publicly, they are taking away the killer's only weapon. Then Alex feels uncomfortable because Oliver is looking at them and asks him if he has a secret that he wants to tell them, or if he just is creeping like a creep. Rodrigo tells him, shouting that everyone knows that he is a sociopath, but Oliver just ignores them and leaves. Then they all start confessing their secrets. Darby says that he was approved for the scholarship at NASA. Alex says that she is in love with Rodrigo, and Rodrigo that he is in love with Alex. Zach tells everyone that he wants to tell them a secret about his father, which is that he has one of the largest collections of Nazi artifacts in North America, and he took the liberty of turning many of them into pipes, hookahs, and bongs. Then he makes a toast, and he invites everyone to smoke. In the middle of the party, Rodrigo took one of his pills. Then he and Alex lock themselves in the kitchen to be alone for a moment, and then they agree to see each other later. At that moment, Rodrigo sees one of his pills on the floor. Surprised, he picks it up, and then he sees many more pills. Now Rodrigo is very worried and fears for his life, because he knows that the murderer is revealing his secret. Right away, messages arrive on the cell phone to everyone who is at the party, and they ask Rodrigo if his secret is that he takes fentanyl, and they say that that is for junkies. At that moment, the light goes out and everyone wonders what is happening. In the dark, Rodrigo and Alex look for each other. While Rodrigo's messages continue to arrive on their cell phones, one of the people says that there is someone with a mask of Rodrigo's face. They all panic and start screaming. The killer is here as they move quickly to get out of the house. Rodrigo looks for Alex, saying that he only takes the pills to not think so much, and then he sees the killer, who is now chasing him. Rodrigo stumbles and locks himself in a closet. He remains silent so as not to be found, but his cell phone rings. The killer finds him and breaks down the door, but Rodrigo manages to slip through the ventilation shaft and out into the yard when he is walking away. The killer attacks him with a taser and Rodrigo falls. The killer puts many pills in his mouth and cuts his throat because of another murder. The school is closed until October. Now 4 friends meet outdoors, remembering Rodrigo sadly. Oliver sends a message to McConaughey offering his support, while Alex continues to be suspicious of Oliver. Those weeks, McConaughey continues to see Oliver and continues to have memories of his past. Days later, the school opens again and prepares for a new game. Mackin gives the group a drawing of Rodrigo to honor him. Alex doesn't say anything about it. She just says that she's sure who did it and looks at Oliver, who is blamed by many at school. In the game, Alex tells McConaughey that it's pretty obvious because at the party Rodrigo insulted Oliver in front of everyone, and an hour later he was dead. McConaughey tells Alex that if she's sure, go to the police, but Alex says they're not going to do anything because Oliver's brother is the deputy. She also tells McConaughey that the murderer used a taser and only cops use it, and that only cops can do background checks to reveal his secrets. But at the end of the conversation, McConaughey gets upset with Alex and leaves. McConaughey arrives home, and it is the day her grandmother has to go to the sleep clinic, and she tells McConaughey that she shouldn't stay home alone, since McConaughey had told her that she would stay at Alex's house when Gam was not there. So McConaughey, to reassure her, tells her that she will stay with Alex, but she didn't. The next day, Oliver surprises McConaughey and tells her he wants to take her for a ride in the car, and they go to a place where the grass is tall, and they look at the field. At that moment Oliver's phone rings. It's his brother. While Oliver is on the phone, McConaughey gets into the car and accidentally opens the glove box. Very surprised, she sees that there is the taser that Oliver's brother was asking him for. When Oliver gets back to the car, McConaughey is very scared, but she tries to pretend that she doesn't know anything. Oliver tells her that her brother wants to know where he is all the time, worried about what happened. Talking a bit about her parents, McConaughey realizes that Oliver did a background check on her. She gets upset and gets out of the car. Oliver yells at her that he already knows all about her and asks her what she is going to do to get home. But McConaughey decides to return alone and calls the driver that offered his services in town. Way home, the driver talks about the murdered boys, and when they get to the house, he asks McConaughey if she's staying there alone. McConaughey tells him no, that the lights are off because her parents go to bed early. McConaughey is a bit worried by the driver's questions and makes sure he leaves. She then locks the doors, takes a knife for her protection, locks herself in her room, and falls asleep. She continues to have nightmares about her past, and she is awakened by the sound of the bell from Gam's room. She sees that her door is open, and when she looks at her nightstand, his cell phone is missing, also the knife. McConaughey is scared. She calls her grandmother, but no one answers. When she peeks into the hallway, she realizes that the bell is missing, and the door to Gam's room is open. She is very scared and runs to the kitchen to call 911, but she hears on the phone her statement when she was being tried. She goes looking for another knife, but there is none. McConaughey panics and starts calling Oliver. She sees that there are many photos of a burned young woman, and the fireplace is on. She also sees newspapers with the news where she was blamed. McConaughey starts crying as the killer is watching her from outside with a mask of McConaughey's face. Then he breaks the window and immobilizes her with the taser. The killer enters the house and sprays flammable liquid over her when he is going to set fire. A car arrives at the house, the murderer is alerted, and McConaughey makes him fall. But the killer quickly flees, leaving behind his mask. Alex runs into the house while he calls 911 and tells McConaughey that her grandmother called her. Very disturbed, McConaughey tells Alex that Oliver is the murderer, and that now everyone will know her secret. Alex, who still doesn't know what she's talking about, receives a message with McConaughey's photo when she was in custody. Hours later, McConaughey wakes up in the hospital, and there are her grandmother and her friends. They tell McConaughey that Oliver was arrested, and that she is safe now. They tell her they already know her secret, but they would like to hear her version. McConaughey tells them that she was with a group of friends at the beach, and they were doing some kind of ritual to let her get on the team. They had made a bonfire. She was tied up with other girls, and they were giving them alcohol. They tried to make them turn against each other, and since they were drunk, McConaughey pushed her friend without knowing that she was going to fall into the bonfire. Her friend Jasmine survived, but she suffered terrible burns, and her face was disfigured. So she got charged and went to trial, and even after she was acquitted, she still got threats daily. Her parents blamed each other and broke up. She was ashamed of herself, and that's why she moved to Osborne after listening to her. Her friends gave her moral support, saying that she was a good person back home. McConey is watching the news of Oliver's arrest, and she continues to recover. A few days later, autumn arrives, and in town they are celebrating the Harvest Festival. Skipper is giving a little speech on TV, saying that this time nothing can stop the town from reviving its traditions and preparing for another successful year. At school, McConey is waiting to be picked up by her friends to go to the festival. While she is waiting, she receives a message from Darby telling her that Oliver is out, that his brother let him go. At that moment, McConaughey sees that Oliver arrives in his car. She gets scared and runs into the school. As she is looking for a place to hide, she calls 911 and gives them her location. There she meets Caleb, and McConaughey calms down for a moment, but Caleb is stabbed in the back. This time the killer has a mask of Caleb's face and gives the knife to McConaughey, making her look guilty. And she can't believe that Oliver is running into the school, asking if she is okay. Oliver quickly goes to help Caleb and calls an ambulance. Darby and Alex also arrived. Then McConaughey, who is still in shock, realizes that at the Harvest Festival in the corn maze, there will be many people and there will be more deaths. Meanwhile, at the festival, the killer sprays the ground with flammable liquid and sets the corn maze on fire. On the way to the festival, McConaughey receives a call from Zach, who is distraught, saying that the maze is on fire, and her father is there. McConaughey proposes to her friends, enters the car to help Zach, and half of the class that are inside. They are scared, but they accept. They go through the fire, and quickly get out of the car to look for Zach. Oliver takes the taster that is in the glove box. They find Mackin and other friends, and Alex and Darby help them out, while Oliver and McConaughey stay behind to find Zach. Then they find Zach's father begging for his life, and the killer wearing a mask of Skipper's face. When the killer realizes that McConaughey and Oliver are there, he decides to kill Skipper and puts his sword through his head. McConaughey and Oliver are terrified. At that moment the killer takes off his mask and is Zach, who is very upset that they ruined the moment to kill his own father, since he had prepared a little speech. Oliver reaches out to demobilize him with the taser, calling him a sociopath, but the taser doesn't work, and Zach stabs Oliver in the stomach. Then, Zach tells them that if he were a sociopath he wouldn't be emotionally involved, and that they are all hypocrites just like his dad. So he showed everyone who they really are, and while he is explaining how he is going to blame McConaughey for everything, wounded Oliver shoots the taser again, and Zach dodging it, but gets distracted for a moment, and McConaughey stabs him in the stomach. Then she gets on top of him and tells him that she doesn't need a mask to show him who he really is, then stabs him again in the chest, and Zach dies with the same knife he gave McConaughey. Then McConaughey goes to help Oliver, who is seriously injured, while they hear the ambulance approaching. Days later, graduation day arrives and everyone looks happy. The movie ends as McConaughey finishes reciting a poem at her graduation, where she forgives her past, and then she calls her friend Jasmine, who also forgave her. Thanks for watching.